Usually, in a video game, the final boss is your greatest enemy, like the corrupt crime lord who's taken over the city, or the president of Square Enix.
Square Enix 代表取締役社長
Normal. What stings even more than that is when the final boss of a game is someone you thought was your friend, someone who's maybe been by your side for the entire game, only now they've turned on you and revealed their true motives, necessitating a heartbreaking boss battle that no one is coming out of unscathed. Just consider these 7 times the final boss was your best friend, and also beware some fairly major spoilers, obviously, for the following games.
Throughout the entirety of Yakuza series' prequel game, Yakuza 0, it's clear that protagonist Kiryu and his sworn brother Nishiki are best buds. They sing karaoke together, they fight back to back, and Nishiki can't even bring himself to murder Kiryu when he's told to do so, the ultimate sign of Yakuza friendship. Aww. This brotherly bond persists into the start of the next chronological game in the Yakuza series, Yakuza Kiwami, which begins with Kiryu taking the blame for a killing committed by Nishiki and doing hard time in his place. It's something of a bummer, therefore, when you get out of prison to discover that in the 10 years you've been away, Nishiki has gone fully off the rails and become an unhinged crime lord who seems to want Kiryu dead. Why has he done this? Well, money, of course, but also throughout the game we come to learn that Nishiki is tormented and deeply unhappy, having realised he'll never measure up to the natural authority exuded by his forsaken bestie, Kiryu. Like I say, naturally, this being a Yakuza game, the rivalry comes to a head with a bone-shattering boss fight between these two former best friends, one made unbearably more poignant by constant interruptions from heartbreaking flashbacks of the bond these two once shared. Still, once the fight is over, Nishiki seems to come to his senses, and it looks like the two of you might be ready to strike up the old friendship again. Oh, guess not. You know, I think this probably all started when they gave Kiryu a dragon back tattoo and Nishiki got a fish. All downhill from there.
Plot-wise, the arcade beat-em-up Double Dragon is pretty straightforward. The story is that Billy Lee's girlfriend Marion is beaten up and kidnapped by the criminal gang the Black Warriors, so Billy and his brother Jimmy Lee head out to rescue her. I've watched more complex episodes of Peppa Pig. Actually, I probably shouldn't have admitted to that, should I? The arcade version of Double Dragon was wildly popular, at least partly because it included 2-player co-op. Thousands of players pumped in enough quarters to get to the final boss, Machine Gun Willie, and rescue Marion. The game was so popular, it was ported to various home platforms. Due to the limitations of the NES console though, the version for Nintendo's 8-bit machine was a dramatically different game, with different level layouts, and a maximum of 2 enemies on screen at any one time. The biggest change though, is that the cooperative 2-player mode that was so beloved in the arcade version of Double Dragon was entirely missing. Probably should have called it Single Dragon then, shouldn't they? It'd be weird not to have iconic character Jimmy Lee in there at all though, so he shows up at the end, after you've defeated the arcade version's final boss, and reveals that he, your own brother, your own flesh and blood, is the secret true leader of the Black Warriors gang that has been terrorising the city. You'd have thought that sort of thing might have come up at family dinner. You're then straight into a fist fight with the real final boss, your bro, who is a match for you in every way. Except that he's got the same awful AI as the rest of the enemies in the game. The ending sequence then shows you heading up to Jimmy's penthouse apartment, complete with pissed off looking house cat and spare vest, to rescue your girlfriend Marion from where she's been held captive by your secret jerk brother. All I'm saying is that Christmas at Mr. and Mrs. Lee's place is going to be pretty awkward this year.
South Park, The Stick of Truth, took the long-running animated show and mashed it up with Lord of the Rings style fantasy, creating an RPG full of mystical items, magical enemies, and farts.
I'm going to teach you a fart called the Sneaky Squeaker. It will become your greatest ally. Don't believe me? Try and block my attack.
In it, you play as the prophesized new kid who is going to unite the forces of good and reclaim the mystical Stick of Truth, while the rest of the cast take on roles as fantasy wizards, rogues, and bards.
The wizard lives this way, in the greenhouse, over there.
Still, the bond of friendship between the show's main characters is as important a part of the game as it is in the show, and you'll be spending most of your time with the show's main characters Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny, here reimagined as a princess.
And here, of course, is the breathtaking and lovely Princess Kenny, the fairest maiden in all the kingdom.
Eventually, after much questing, you and your friends reclaim the Stick of Truth from Clyde, only to be immediately confronted by government agents who want the stick.
I'll admit you are fascinating. You have more power than any child I've ever come across, and yet all you seem to really care about is this. It must be very important. What does it do?
Naturally, you and your friends refuse to help the agents, all except Princess Kenny, who it turns out has a backstory so elaborate it requires Morgan Freeman to narrate it.
At least one of you has some sense?
You'd sell us all out? But why, Princess Kenny?
Because Princess Kenny was born a half-orc, whose entire village was wiped out by humans and elves.
Now it's up to you, as douchebag the new kid, to defeat Princess Kenny, who makes up in brutal attack power what she lacks in intelligible dialogue. Defeat Princess Kenny and you might think the ordeal is over, but things are just getting started, as she drinks a vial of green goo that transforms her into an unkillable Nazi zombie.
Nazi zombie Princess Kenny!
And you have to do this like 5 more times. Before you finally realise that the situation is hopeless and the only chance you have is to fart on Princess Kenny's balls.
You've got this!
Which is possibly somewhere in the Silmarillion. There's really no way of knowing.
What about you, new guy? You in this for the credits?
Credits never hurt. But, I have a daughter. Kata. I don't get to see her as often as I'd like, but at least I can provide for her.
Everyone knows the classic Star Wars team. There's a little guy who's a Jedi, and then a cooler guy who has a gun, and they're best friends. Sometimes the gun guy is Pedro Pascal. It's a foolproof system. So it didn't seem unusual that Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, introduced new character Bode Akuna, a mercenary with a roguish, rough-and-tumble attitude, a laser blaster, and a jetpack. Bode and your character, Cal Kestis, become fast friends, bonding over their shared goals, backgrounds, and desire to defeat a former Jedi Knight called Dagan Gera, who, we are told, is to be this game's main antagonist.
Hey, back to breath.
Yes, everything is going great between these two best buddies, right up until the point when Bode tips off the Empire to Cal and Co.'s safe house location.
Bode. I'm really sorry about this.
And kills Jedi Master Eno Cordova.
No!
And runs off with the compass that leads to the hidden world of Tanalorr, which we were going to use together, bestie. How could you?
Bode has the compass. Go after it. Go!
To cap it all off, after you chase Bode down and confront him, out of nowhere, he produces a force push.
Right now. What have you
And a lightsaber, revealing that all along he was secretly a Jedi who survived Order 66.
You can't be. You're not the only one who survived.
Okay, did they kill any Jedi during Order 66? What are you clone troopers doing? It turns out that Bode wanted to get to Tanalorr because he thought it would be a safe place to take his daughter, a sentiment only slightly undermined by how many times he nearly accidentally kills her in the game's final boss fight, when Cal and Dathomir Witch Merrin make it to Tanalorr themselves for a final showdown.
Listen to them, please.
It's an emotional, brutal confrontation with multiple points where Bode could stop trying to kill his former best friend and just chill out a bit. Only instead he chooses the alternate path of smashing Cal's face in with a barrage of crushing punches, the only counter to which is apparently the dark side of the Force. Sadly, your former buddy won't listen to reason regardless of how many chances he's given, and with no other option, Cal is forced to execute this Jedi with a blaster. See, clone troopers? That's how you do it.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio? I don't know how you survived that plane crash, but I've never been one to question Providence. I'm Atlas, and I aim to keep you alive.
When you arrive in the dystopian, collapsing underwater city of Rapture, you're not exactly surrounded by friends. Pretty much your only company is either weird little girls with glowing eyes and nasty looking syringes, or horrendously mutated splicers. And let's be honest, the conversation isn't up to much.
There's semen on everything! Everything!
Because we're in the middle of the ocean, I'm going to go ahead and assume you mean seafaring gentlemen. There is one friendly face, or at least friendly voice, you can rely on as you explore the failed city of Rapture, and that's Atlas. He's got a charming Irish lilt, and he's just trying to rescue his wife Moira and their wee baby Patrick.
I know you must feel like the unluckiest man in the world right now, but you're the only hope I'll ever see my wife and child again. Go to Neptune's bounty. Find my family, please.
Plus he's always so polite. It's all would you kindly this and would you kindly that. I always say, manners cost nothing. Imagine our surprise then when it turns out that Atlas, your only friend in this godforsaken flooding city, is actually a mobster called Frank Fontaine, who has been manipulating you all along.
It's time to end this little masquerade. There ain't no Atlas, kid. Never was.
It turns out BFF stood for Bad Frank Fontaine. In the end, for all its musings on the dangers of objectivism and its treatise on free will, Bioshock ends with a boss fight against a big monster. And that monster is Frank Fontaine himself. By this point, Frank Fontaine is jacked up on the Adam Wonder drug that provides your plasmid powers throughout the game, and the only language he understands is bullets to the face. Though I still feel bad about leaving Moira and the wee baby Patrick all alone.
I really wound you up with that wife and child bit. Oh, me poor Moira! Me wee baby Patrick!
Unbelievable. This guy.
had our fair share of disappointing vacations, but nothing quite on the scale of Dead Island. This tropical paradise is overrun with zombies, the swimming pools are filled with blood, and the only cocktail you'll have in your hand is a Molotov. At the very least, they could have put a little umbrella in it. When the zombies swarm the hotel and you're desperately searching for an escape route, you'll be comforted by someone at the other end of an intercom, at this point known only as The Voice, not to be confused with the reality TV show of the same name.
Do exactly as I say, okay? You're gonna have to trust me.
The Voice is the calm, reassuring help you need as you spend the nervy opening moments exploring the darkened corridors of the Royal Palms Resort Hotel. Then he's there again when you're rescued by the lifeguard John Cinemoy, broadcasting from a setup that looks like it belongs to your average Twitch streamer.
You need to get out of there, and I can help you. I can arrange for transportation, by air, by sea, but first you need to get here.
Just needs a touch more LED lighting, then it'll be perfect. Quite a lot of your time in Dead Island is spent trying to rig up radio equipment to secure communications with The Voice, not least because he appears to have a plan to secure an antidote to the zombie plague. Unfortunately, when you reach the prison island from which The Voice is broadcasting, he gasses you and steals the vaccine.
You had something he wanted. He came in here and took it right off you like he knew just where to find it.
The vaccine. Turns out that Colonel Ryder White, the man behind The Voice, is planning on stealing the vaccine, escaping with his zombified wife, and nuking the island, with a bunch of survivors still there.
Kevin told us the plan. You're gonna kill everyone.
Maybe I should start with you.
I don't know how your friendships work, but holding me at gunpoint is a sure way of getting uninvited from my birthday party. Having been bitten by his zombified wife, Ryder White then injects himself with the vaccine to cure himself, but it has what we'd argue is the exact opposite effect, in that it instantly turns him into a big gross zombie who acts as the final boss of the game. Okay, he's definitely not coming to my birthday party now. For one thing, he'd never fit in the bounce house.
Friends are hard to come by amidst the glitzy malls and casinos of Dead Rising 2, because almost everyone you meet is either a zombie, or they've completely lost their goddamn mind.
You know me. I'm Slappy. Everyone knows Slappy.
That's what makes Stacy Forsyth such a rock for your character Chuck Green. Leader of the zombie rights group Cure, Stacy is the one who stays behind in the safe house and looks after your daughter Katie while you head out into Fortune City looking for survivors, information, and Zombrex, the medication that stops Katie from turning into one of the undead horde herself.
Chuck, if you find anyone alive out there,
I'll do what I can.
Stacy guides you through the entire game over walkie-talkie, always has your back, and the stakes of the main game's final boss fight are that if you lose, Stacy and Katie will be sacrificed to zombies, the worst result imaginable.
Better get up, princess. Don't want to waste your last day on Earth sleeping.
That is, unless you played Dead Rising 2's Off the Record DLC, which offered us a very different take on Stacy. Here you're playing as Frank West, but your relationship with Stacy is the same right up until this point of the game, which in the original plays out like this.
I found this down there too.
I'll call my station. They'll send help.
What the hell?
And in Off the Record, plays out like this.
I'll call my station. They'll send help.
What the?
Yes, now Stacy is the bad guy who was faking her concern for zombies, her friendship with you, and it seems, even her own hair.
After everything that's happened, you still haven't figured it out. Have you, Frank?
Now to finish the DLC, you'll have to beat the final boss, who is Stacy, now revealed as Agent S, a stooge for evil pharmaceutical company Phenotrans.
But enough talk, Frank. I had a feeling you'd show up, so I prepared a little toy for you.
And it's not going to be easy because Stacy is now in control of a giant deadly mech. She's also a highly trained Black Widow knockoff operative, while you're a schlubby out-of-shape photographer. One of those things does take care of the other though, so I guess all's well that ends well?
It's Agent S. I'm ready for extraction. Yeah, I just have an old newspaper that needs to be taken out to the trash.
I need to start making better friends. I wonder what that weirdo in the mascot costume is doing.
You ruined everything! I'll never get a date now!
Welcome to the end of the video, and as Jane, myself, the final boss, and your best friend, I would like to recommend to you these two videos. We won't be fighting, but there's this video from Outside Xbox about the bad endings that took even more work than the good endings. Check those out. Or this from our sister channel Outside Extra, which are about the sequels that just ain't coming. Sorry, folks. So take your pick, and that's all from me, Jane, your best friend and final boss.